Welcome to Fast Frontiers. I am your host, Tim Schigel, Managing Partner of Refinery Ventures. In this episode, we're talking with Mitch Port, Vice President of Strategy and Analytics at BlockFi, which provides wealth management products for crypto investors, all powered by blockchain technology. In this episode, we're going to dive into all things cryptocurrency and how exchanges are actually very similar to traditional financial services. We're also going to discuss how crypto is plugging into open monetary networks, which allows access to clients worldwide. The biggest theme, or so what, I hope you can take away from this conversation is that crypto is still in the very early stages, likely the first or second inning, according to Mitch. While it still seems like everyone is talking about it, adoption and engagement is only around 1%. It'll be exciting to see how the next few innings evolve. Please enjoy my conversation with Mitch Port. Welcome, Mitch.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have this discussion today with Mitch Port, who's Vice President of Strategy and Analytics at BlockFi. And so this is for anybody interested, curious about crypto and what's going on, not only basic explanation, but also kind of the latest, because I think BlockFi is kind of on the leading edge, pioneering the future of cryptocurrencies. So, Mitch, first of all, some people get the crypto bug. Others haven't got it yet, but give us a little bit more about your background, your origins, and why you were susceptible to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, thanks for having me, Tim. I guess the majority of my career up until about 3 years ago was in strategy consulting. So most recently, I was working at Bain & Company out of our Chicago office. And Bain is a pretty generalist consulting firm. So working across private equity, industrials, consumer goods, with really the focus being strategy and helping our clients make better data-driven decisions. Prior to that, I got my MBA at Northwestern, but kind of traditional background in kind of consulting and things like that. But I actually caught the Bitcoin bug back in 2011. And unfortunately, it didn't bite hard enough, or else things might have turned out a bit differently for my career. But it was just really fascinating to me. I guess I was kind of drawn to it. Politically, I'd been really interested in Austrian economics and just the idea of kind of non-state money, and trying to understand if something outside of fiat currency could eventually take hold was really interesting to me. So as I progressed in my career, the space had really matured quite a lot. In 2011, there was basically nothing, maybe one or two companies, a handful of people. But when I decided to make the jump in like mid 2018, there was a much more robust industry. So I looked around, ended up taking a job at Kraken Exchange, which is a large global exchange based out of San Francisco. Director of strategy there for a little over a year and a half, doing similar work to what I would have done at Bain for our clients, but helping with both short and long-term strategy, working on some M&A, both diligence and post acquisition integration and things like that. And then for the past about year, I've been at BlockFi, and I'm currently vice president of strategy and analytics there. So similar, kind of mandate, and just how do I grow the company's various business lines, taking a really data-driven approach to that.
So what was it with Kraken when you were there? Can you share, what did you learn, in terms of, the difference between kind of the theory of, what you read and studied and thought on crypto, and then, actual implementation, real life kind of learnings in that experience?
So I guess I was a bit surprised, despite having spent a lot of my free time learning about crypto. Once you get into the actual industry, it's very similar to traditional financial services. At the end of the day, Kraken was an exchange, and exchanges are a pretty proven business model in traditional finance. So, I didn't have a financial services background, so I was really having to learn a lot about that. And actually, the crypto knowledge was certainly helpful, but frankly, what's more helpful is just a really good understanding of traditional financial services. So I guess that was a bit surprising to me.
What has changed since you started that you've seen from the environment overall, from like a regulatory standpoint?
I think particularly the U.S., the regulatory environment has gotten much better. I think in the early days, there was a lot of questions about, who has oversight on crypto, which of these crypto assets, can be traded, and which ones could be deemed as securities. There's still, frankly, a lot of work to be done. It's very patchwork, particularly in the U.S. Like you kind of have to go state by state to understand what you're able to do from a trading, from a lending and other perspective. But we have gotten some pretty decent guidance. Bitcoin has been deemed not a security. The OCC has said banks are able to custody digital assets. The IRS has provided guidance on how things are taxed. So I think there's just been a lot more regulatory clarity, which has created comfort for more traditional players to start entering the space.
Yeah, so there's still quite a lot of work to be done, as you mentioned. How many innings are we into, or how many years do you think in terms of kind of the mainstream adoption? Obviously, it's getting more popular every time there's an announcement. Elon and Tesla buying $1 billion or what have you. It creates more awareness, more people get in.
Sure.
Where do you think we stand in this progression?
Yeah, well, I might be biased here. I'm a pretty big Bitcoin bull, but I think we're probably in the first or second inning. And the way I think about this is just looking at overall adoption. And there's various ways you can think about adoption, whether it's an S curve or something like that. But people have tried to pinpoint, how many people worldwide own Bitcoin, and I've seen some estimates of maybe 100, 110 million people, which, on a percentage basis is low single digits. Even that, in my opinion, is a bit aggressive. I think the Coinbase S1, which recently filed before they went public, was very enlightening. The studies I talked about kind of took their headline number at face value, 43 million customers. But when you dig in deeper, I think they said they had about 2.8 million active users. So, that 43 million are just people that have kind of signed up, given their email. There's a much smaller base of people that are actually engaged. And I think even those, a lot of them probably only have a very, very small, like less than 1% allocation into the space. So given all that, I think we're probably less than 1% adoption, maybe 0.5%, which to me means, first or second inning.
Yeah, that's thanks for sharing that data. That's a great data point. While I see and hear some of the adoption and I have a little bit of involvement, there's still so many people, and I'm sure this is, for the listeners, family members I talk to and others, even people that are in finance or have been in finance that are like still on the sidelines, kind of asking the questions and just trying to understand what it is. Right. So I'm sure there's going to need to be a lot more education. So what was it that attracted you to BlockFi?
I think BlockFi is just a super exciting company, and maybe I could give just a little bit about, our business. And for me, it was really the leadership team, as well as the products and services that they were offering, which I think were, are really unique in the space. So, BlockFi is basically, a crypto financial services company, and our mission is bridging the gap between crypto and traditional financial wealth management products. Currently, our platform manages more than 15 billion in assets, and that number has grown substantially over the time I've joined. And we have a number of products for both retail and institutional investors. And I think, we're one of the few companies that really does a great job at kind of pairing the retail and institutional sides together. So on the retail side, we have 4 kind of key products. The first being a BlockFi interest account, and that's a crypto-bearing interest account. You can earn up to 8.6% APY. So, you deposit money with us, and, you earn an interest. So you're able to, kind of compound your investment. The next one is a crypto-backed loans product. So this is for people that want to borrow either USD or stablecoin, which is effectively USD equivalent crypto. And they can use their Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin as collateral to be able to take out that loan. We have 2 more. One is trading, which, is not super unique to BlockFi, but, you're able to buy, sell, or swap crypto. And then lastly is our Bitcoin rewards credit card, which we're going to be launching in Q2. And this is a really exciting product. It's going to be first to the market credit card in the space. And it's going to allow you to earn 1.5% back in Bitcoin on all purchases made with the card, in addition to some other benefits. So that's kind of the retail side of the business. And then the institutional side of the business is really kind of, I view it as the back end, which really powers the retail products. So we have BlockFi Institutional Services, which provides customizable lending and borrowing of crypto, stablecoins, USD. And that's really powered by our crypto balances. So people lend us their Bitcoin, retail individuals, and then we take that and we lend it out to institutions to be able to generate yield to pay back retail. So, to me, it was just a really incredible business model. I think something that's just really needed in the space. And if you look at the traditional markets, credit and debt are just really big. And we hadn't really seen that yet in crypto. So to me, it's kind of the next phase of the industry where, okay, great. Now I have my crypto. What can I do with that? What additional products and services can I use to really leverage my crypto?
So now that you have these retail finance products that are similar to what somebody might engage with, say, with traditional banks, how's the future going to be different? 10, 15 years from now, kind of describe what you see as how the face of banking is different and why, the impact that crypto's had on that.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be very different. I think we're probably going to see a world where a lot of these crypto native companies get really large. And we've seen that already with Coinbase. And I think once they've kind of solidified their crypto product suite, they'll probably start extending into, equity and other things like that. And I think we'll also see the reverse. And we already have been seeing that, where traditional financial institutions are realizing they need to have a product suite in the crypto space. And I think what crypto really allows, which is pretty amazing, is crypto is really worldwide. We're plugging into these open monetary networks, basically, which allows us from day one to be able to access clients worldwide. So BlockFi, I'm not sure what the latest count is, but last I checked, we had clients in over 160 different countries around the world. And that's just because we can use the crypto rails to be able to access these customers. We don't have to necessarily interact with traditional banks or anything like that. As long as somebody has crypto, they could send it to BlockFi. We can fund loans in stable coins all around the world. And that really gives us a great competitive advantage where we could start from day one being a global company. I think it's 30 to 40% of our clients are currently international, despite the fact that we haven't done any marketing outside of the US, which just really shows how much of a demand there is internationally for these types of products. So I think that is incredibly new to crypto and something that is probably raising the eyebrows of a lot of people in traditional finance who are having to go, country by country and really build out that international strategy as opposed to being able to do it from day one.
So how much of that is driven by, currency hedging, if you will, versus just the need for people to transfer money and to move money around?
Yeah, it's a great question. To be honest, it's tough to tell. I think, worldwide, there's obviously a huge demand for dollars. Dollars are still the reserve currency of the world. So BlockFi enables people to get exposure to dollars, either by buying stable coins or by taking out dollar-based loans using their crypto. So that's certainly very attractive to people internationally that want dollar exposure. But beyond that, I think people are also, depending on the country, they either dollars or Bitcoin or something like that might be more attractive than their local currency. So it's really kind of on a case-by-case basis. And there's just so many different reasons why people would want to get involved in the space, especially internationally.
When you joined, tell us a little bit about the journey just as a company and, what you're learning as it relates to just, being part of a fast growing company. BlockFi recently, you closed was it Series D, $350 million round?
Yep. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So tell me what that journey's been like.
It's been great. And that's another reason why I joined, is being able to join a really fast moving startup. I think we're really hitting our stride. So when I joined, I think 9 or 10 months ago, there's maybe 80 to 100 people at the company. We're already at, I think, about 550 people. Wow. So just really explosive growth, and our numbers in terms of our client base, our revenue are even more explosive than that. So, it's been really great. I started as a team of one. I've now got a team of 6 working for me. And it's just always great because there's so much you can be working on. You really have to wear a lot of different hats from, for me, it was finance, strategy, analytics, project management. So you really get to learn a lot of different areas of the business. And, we're just really scrappy, but still very much data driven. So being able to, do an analysis, make a recommendation, and then put that into action, that day or the next day, is just really kind of invigorating. It just makes it a really great place to work.
What are some of the challenges with that growth?
Yeah, I mean, I think the challenges are probably similar to other fast-growing startups where sometimes we're growing faster than kind of our internal processes and procedures. So, we're trying to meet the market demand, or, we're trying to scale up our client services or something like that to address just the really rapid growth. So, oftentimes we'll kind of create some short-term solutions to get things done. And then once we kind of settle, we'll have to kind of go back and figure out, okay, how do we make this more scalable? It's really tough, to build something extremely scalable. I think you need to be really thoughtful and have a lot of lead time. And oftentimes in a fast-moving startup, there's just not the luxury to be able to do that. So we oftentimes just kind of go back and figure out, okay, this is working well, but how do we prepare for the next, 5-10x in terms of scalability?
The other thing it's making me think about is, for many entrepreneurs that I talk to, or people that want to become entrepreneurs or work at startups, that'll come ask for career advice or what have you. It seems like they identify and think startups means like seed stage at an accelerator somewhere. And
right.
You're still a startup, but a startup with 500 and some employees and raise hundreds of $1 millions. I think if you, for a lot of folks, unless you're going to be the founder, joining a company like BlockFi at the point you did, or even Kraken gives you just great experience. You're experiencing that growth. The period you've been there, you're now one of the senior, you're an old timer.
Right. Which is crazy, not having even been there a year, but I'm definitely an old timer. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And think about all the things you learned that you can then pass on or take with you, the next time when you get involved in something even earlier.
Right. Yeah.
So what role obviously this is all happening in the midst of COVID. What impact has that had? And, to what degree is your workforce a remote workforce?
I guess COVID for our business, we once this hit, and I kind of joined right at the beginning of COVID, we as a company kind of made the decision, we want to use this more as a opportunity for us. We are a technology company at the end of the day. Our clients can interact with our platform online. So, I think that's an advantage for us. And I think, given everything that was going on, we decided instead of kind of holding back a little bit, we were going to double down. So we actually, during a lot of the market tumult in, like March and in April, we decided to actually double our marketing spend because we thought, this is a time where crypto and kind of our offering is incredibly attractive. And it turns out in retrospect, that was a really great move. So, despite COVID, we've actually seen really explosive growth on, in terms of the business. I guess the challenge is obviously, scaling internally, so we've added on, hundreds of people, all remote. And previously BlockFi had been not a remote first company. So we have a hub in the New York City area. And so going from that to, purely remote certainly was a challenge, but I think we've been able to get through the process pretty well. And I think that goes back to the transparency and openness of the company.
When you look back at what you've learned so far, if you're back talking to your freshly minted graduating college self, whatever the age that was, 22 or so, what lessons have you learned that you wish you could go back and tell yourself?
I think the number one lesson is probably buy more Bitcoin.
Right.
Beyond that, I think I don't know if I would have done much differently. So I think starting out, at least for me personally, being able to get kind of the grounding in consulting was extremely helpful. So I guess I would tell myself, really focus on building a core skill set, which is applicable no matter what industry you're in. And I think my time in consulting really helped me, on problem solving. Bain particularly does a really great job helping you think through how do you really structure solving a problem? Like, how do you make a data-driven recommendation? How do you do effective analysis? How do you effectively communicate recommendations to, get from kind of recommendation to action? So, I think building that core skill set is something I would still want to do. But, kind of where I am now, I probably would have liked to get more exposure to financial services, just knowing what I know now about how transferable that skill set is. But I guess the other thing is just, at the end of the day, don't be afraid to make a move into the startup realm. I think it's just super exciting and rewarding. You learn so much, and being able to wear a lot of different hats and really feel invested in a company is great. And I might have waited a few more years than I should have before just kind of diving in. And I think my bias is being pretty risk averse, except when it comes to my investments in Bitcoin. But, I think just jumping into the space, especially nowadays, is not actually that risky, to be honest.
Conversations with your friends and family that are still learning or want to understand, Bitcoin and crypto, if they're asking you for next steps, what they do, what should they do to get involved, to take advantage of it, given that we're just in the first or second inning? What is your best advice?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is just kind of do your own research. Nowadays, there's just so much great material out there. I've been starting people with an interview that Michael Saylor, who's the CEO of MicroStrategy, did with Ross Stevens, who's the CEO of New York NYDIG, which is basically a crypto financial services firm. It's just really a great overview of Bitcoin and kind of the value proposition there. But I think it's, one, just spend a little time going through some of the amazing work that's been put into the space. And then, just buy a little Bitcoin, play around with it. I think it's one of those things where, again, you don't have to buy a full Bitcoin, so you could buy 10, 20 bucks worth. Just kind of go through that, experience it, send it around. And I think it's once you start playing around with it, you really kind of grasp how interesting and powerful it is. So that's really my advice. Do a bit of research, buy a little bit, and you'll start falling down the rabbit hole, as we call it, soon enough.
Yep. So start learning by doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Good advice. And of course, the other thing that people need to do is sign up for the BlockFi credit card, which I have done, right? Maybe through an interview I can get put higher on the list. I don't know. Is that possible?
Yeah. So that is a great piece of advice. And that the rationale behind that card is exactly this, actually. So we wanted to start broaching into what we call the crypto curious market segment. So that those are people that are not already like really in depth, and we want a really easy on ramp for them into crypto. So instead of having to figure out like, how do I sign up for an exchange or buy or sell? Like, let me do something I'm familiar with, which is a credit card. Instead of getting airline miles, or instead of getting my cash, which is, being devalued by inflation, let me just get a little bit of Bitcoin back. And that is just a really unique way to enter into the space. And so that's one primary segment that we're targeting, is people that are brand new to crypto, but are interested enough to kind of dabble in it. And we have seen a trend over the past few years, more so instead of spending your crypto, which I think people nowadays don't want to do because they think the value is going to go up. The narrative is really flipped to, how do I earn crypto? So, the BlockFi credit card is great. You can get Bitcoin back. There's other companies like Lolly or Fold, where you can earn Bitcoin by doing your traditional shopping. And these are all really great products to get a little bit of exposure to Bitcoin. And, I think are really attractive for more of the mainstream audience.
That's a really smart idea. I think that's going to be very popular. I'm sure you got a lot of folks signing up for it. Well, Mitch, thank you very much for sharing your knowledge and experience with our Fast Frontier listeners. This is clearly one of the fastest frontiers out there in cryptocurrency, and we'll be excited to continue to watch your career and what the third and fourth and fifth innings look like.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. All
All right. Thank you.
right. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Fast Frontiers. If you like our show and want to know more, check out our website, fastfrontiers.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with others and give us a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. Join us next week when we bring you my conversation with John Simon, Managing Director at Sigma Prime Ventures and Board Chair and Co-founder of Greenlight Fund. The Fast Frontiers podcast is brought to you by Refinery Ventures. Our producer is Abby Fittis. Audio engineering by Astronomic Audio. Marketing, content, and social media support from Content Callout. And our podcast platform is Casted.